So friends, what's the latest in the Abrego Garcia case? Well, the Trump administration continues to defy court orders. Trump administration official Kristi Noem asserts, in substance, that they will not abide by Supreme Court rulings or directives, and Senator Chris Van Hollen calls it by its name, saying, quote, "The Salvadoran government is complicit with the Trump administration in violating U.S. constitutional rights." Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, where are we at the moment in the Abrego Garcia unconstitutional deportation case? Well, Abrego Garcia's lawyers are still fighting in court, but they're being kept in the dark. The presiding judge is still fighting to extract information from Donald Trump's Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice and the Trump administration are still being obstructionist. Let's start with the new reporting. This from ABC News. Headline, Abrego Garcia's lawyers say they're still in the dark about government's efforts to facilitate his return. And that article begins, attorneys for wrongly deported Kilmar Abrego Garcia said in a court filing Thursday that after conducting 3 depositions, they are still in the dark about the government's efforts to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody and return to the United States. U.S. District Judge Paula Xinis, seeking to determine how the government, the Trump administration, has failed to return Abrego Garcia after he was mistakenly deported to El Salvador, last month ordered expedited discovery in the case, which included the depositions of 4 government officials who submitted status updates on Abrego Garcia to the court. In their filing on Thursday, attorneys for Abrego Garcia asked Judge Xinis to authorize 3 additional depositions of officials from the Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. Department of State, and the Department of Justice. This from Abrego Garcia's lawyers, quote, as the court stated in that order, discovery is necessary in light of defendants, Trump administration's, uniform refusal to disclose what it can regarding their facilitation of Abrego Garcia's release and return to the status quo ante, the lawyers wrote. The motion comes a day after Judge Xinis, in a court order, said that the Trump administration had invoked the rarely used state secrets privilege to shield information about the case and scheduled a May 16 hearing on the matter. And friends, get ready for this quote from Kristi Noem. Quote, Garcia is a citizen of El Salvador and should never have been in this country and will not be coming back to this country, Department of Homeland Security Director Kristi Noem said Thursday in an appearance at a budget hearing before the Senate Appropriations Committee. So let's be clear, friends. That's Kristi Noem saying, in substance, fuck the Supreme Court's ruling. With apologies for the language, but that is exactly what she's communicating. Well, in a related story, Senator Chris Van Hollen called out exactly what's going on here. Headline, Senator Van Hollen accuses El Salvador government of being complicit in violating U.S. constitutional rights in Kilmar Abrego Garcia case. And that article reads, Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen on Monday shared more details about his trip to visit Kilmar Abrego Garcia in El Salvador last month and accused the Salvadoran government of being complicit in violating U.S. constitutional rights. Abrego Garcia was deported to a notorious Salvadoran prison in March due to what the Trump administration has called an administrative error. He had a U.S. court order that should have prevented his deportation to his native country. Van Hollen continues to call on the Trump administration to comply with federal and Supreme Court orders that require the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return to the U.S. According to Van Hollen, U.S. and Salvadoran government leaders have been spreading misinformation about Abrego Garcia's case, alleging that he's a gang member and trying to stage parts of the senator's visit to El Salvador. The senator accused U.S. leaders of flooding social media with misinformation in an effort to focus the conversation on gang violence. Quote, "We can fight gang violence without suspending the Constitution of the United States," Van Hollen said Monday. "We should not let them spew misinformation and change the subject." Van Hollen emphasized that the gang claims have not been proven in court. Quote, "My response to them on the social media side or the misinformation is put up or shut up in court," Van Hollen said. "That's where people provide testimony under oath." You know, friends, Senator Van Hollen's challenge of Donald Trump's Department of Justice is exactly right. Go into court, put up, or shut up. If you have the evidence, put it up. Let it be challenged in the crucible of cross-examination by Abrego Garcia's lawyers. You know, you can't just keep kidnapping people and sending them to faraway prisons without due process, without notice and opportunity to be heard in court so that a judge can decide. But Senator Van Hollen is exactly right. The Trump administration and the government of El Salvador are complicit. They're in a conspiracy to violate the constitutional due process rights of persons in the U.S. And eventually, they must be held accountable for their conduct. Because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.